This is my Empire army. And due to no one's demand, I'm going to tell you a lot more about it. The army is about 3 to 3,500 points and it's fully painted. So quite a rare breed. And it's painted in the colors of Averland. Why, you ask? There is no real reason behind it, I just like it. This was my first army, and actually when I started out collecting I was deciding on a green and white color scheme. I think that must be Hochland, if I'm not mistaken. Or Stilland? No, it's Hochland, but I digress. As you see, it's not about the history or the lore, it's just about how it looks for me. And when I was quite inexperienced with painting miniatures, I thought green and white would look cool. And it would look cool, but painting green and white is quite literally the worst you can do, especially when you are me. And about, I think 18 years ago or something, you stumble into a Games Workshop store and you buy a bone white and a Dark Angels green. The two worst covering paints in existence. So technically I painted big parts of this army twice. But the point of this video is not only to rant about why I hate green and white or why I have a fetish for yellow and black combined. This is a topic for a whole nother video. I want to tell you a little bit about my individual units, showcase them a little bit, maybe you get inspiration for it, maybe you want to start an Empire army yourself. And I want to talk about why I chose this unit, why I chose the rank and file amount that the unit has. And after playing with those units a little bit in the old world, I also want to talk about how they perform for me. A little disclaimer, I am not a professional gamer, I also don't want to be one. I am a little bit weird when it comes to playing Warhammer. I personally play for fun. So I just pick units that I really like, I find them cool, or I like painting them, and then I mix them together into an army and I try to win occasionally. And my friends that I play against, they have the same philosophy, so keep that in mind. First up, my state troops. They are the backbone of every Imperial army, at least on paper. So I am playing them 6 wide and 4 deep. And as you can see, I put a little unit filler in there, a younger demigriff. This is sort of my mascot. I love this little griffin theme I have going on all through my army. There are some demigriffs in the future. I have the griffin, that's also not painted yet fully, so technically I don't have it going on yet, but it's planned. I also like to use the griffin banner, it all fits together and I find it quite cool. So when I decided which unit filler to take, I decided on this little guy here. I'm also quite proud of this freehand here on the banner. It's the second freehand I ever did, so. Banners with freehands on them, they just look so gorgeous. Well, as you can see, those guys still have hand weapon and shields. This is a legacy leftover from the 8th edition, when hand weapons and shields were actually good. Nowadays I run them with Halberts. And I'm working on a few halberdiers that I can actually mix into the regiment. So it's a combined regiment, but my enemy actually knows, okay, there are halberts in there, so that I don't have to convert all of my 50 or something state troopers with new halberts. But I think that's actually the only viable option. I also play them as the veteran state troops. They are actually quite nice with their weapon skill 4 and the fact that they can re-roll leadership tests. And so far I like them, I don't mind them at all. I know everyone is bashing on infantry, but I love infantry. I love those big blocks and I want to play infantry. And if you're picking your fights with those little guys, they can actually perform quite well, especially combined with the Griffin banner. Those +4 rank bonus at the end, it literally adds a lot. And the fact that you have this big of a body count, you can also break smaller units. For example, one of my mates, they play Beastman and he likes to charge with his 3 Dragon Ogres. And if he doesn't manage to get enough wounds into my unit, he cannot make a fall back in good order move, because I have more than double of his body count in the fight. So more often than not, those little guys actually surprised me and they held the line quite well. Next up, my crossbowmen. I have 20 of them, and I gotta be honest, I have nothing to say about them. At least nothing good. They never done anything for me. You mostly hit on 5s, you mostly wound on 4s. and you need to get a line of sight. I do have those models and I wait for an edition that actually makes them useful. And I will keep them, but I won't play them. But if you want to play them, I would actually suggest using the crossbows and not the 24 inches handguns. Next in line are my greatswords. I always wanted to have them, but I didn't want to buy the metal models. So when they finally released this plastic kit, I fell in love and I bought 30 of those little guys. I am now playing them in a regiment of 28, 7 wide and 4 deep. I think 7 wide is still a unit that is not too unwieldy. You can still maneuver them around handily, it works. And you have the option to actually get a few hits into the enemy units. Because you can always do a supporting attack, and as those little guys already just have 1 attack in their profile, it works. And with the rule change to initiative, when you actually get to charge, you might be able to hit with those little guys for the first time in my life. To clarify, I was playing against a high elf player in the past 2 editions, so with Strike First I never saw those little guys actually do any damage whatsoever. Now they work quite well for me. If you get the charge off, and with the Empire you have a lot of tools to make the enemy move towards you. Just take enough cannons, make him move towards you, and then when it's time, make the counter charge. This, by the way, was my first freehand banner. I also like it quite well. I like this Roman style banner that they have, it fits really well. Also, my champion is a special model. I can't remember what this model was. I think it was an Empire Captain. It was a plastic kit that they released and I just liked it that much, and I don't use that many captains, so I just stuck it in there as a champion. These are one of my knights. I call them the Angry Bees. I play them as normal Empire knights. I am still a little bit mad that they took away their plate armor, but they still work fine. I do prefer to use my infantry units as a core choice, just for the looks of it. But this is from the rules, it's a much better choice. Especially if you get some synergies going with some Sigma priests, for example. I will talk about this later. But these little guys, they are very tough. I play them as a unit of 12, 6 wide, 2 deep. And they will definitely hold the line. But I also am thinking about either playing a unit of 4 or 5 as small, skippy flanking units. So far I really struggle to get some flanking or some recharges off, and I want to try and improve on that. This large unit of 12 knights, it just looks gorgeous. Those are my inner circle knights. And you can see immediately there is also a legacy problem here. So I used to play them in the older versions as a unit of 10 knights. But there was also a chapter master in there, so I only have 9. And I wanted to play them as a unit of 12 though. So I had to substitute 3 of my other guys and stick it in there. So down the line I want to repaint them so that they look uniform. Then again, I also don't like this golden armor that I have going on there. It's okay, but I never really grew fond of it, so I might repaint this whole unit down the line. This is also why I didn't spend too much time on the banner. It's very crude, there is no freehand on there, it's just so that it's represented on the battlefield. The inner circle knights though, they are really good, I love them. The fact that you have drilled and you can feather them out while attacking is so good. I had a few charges where I feathered them out, so I had 11 in the front row, and that's 12 attacks with the champion, combined with the special rule that you can reroll once when attacking in the first round, and they have a weapon skill of 4 and strength 4, so with lances strength 6 they can do some serious damage, especially against enemy infantry when they will also break their rank and file bonus. I do tend to run a Ulrich priest in there, and this little guy can improve their potential even more with the prayers. You can either add another D3 to your attack range, or you can give each model a multiple wound 2 special rule, which will turn this unit very dangerous against everything that has multiple wounds. So far I haven't left the house without these guys. They are one of my core choices, just that they are elite. I think the Outriders are one of the biggest winners when it comes to the Empire and this new army book. The fact that they changed the range of the mortar from the champion from 18 inches to 24 inches is a big deal. All of those guys have ballistic skill of 4 and the champion has a ballistic skill of 5. And now you can use them as skirmishers, which helps a lot when it comes to firing angles. At the start of the game, they can move 7 inches and they don't count as moved. So I usually play them just like that. I put them into position and I will never move again, and I shoot at everything from the first turn. And thanks to their high ballistic skill and also the special weapon from the champion, they tend to do a lot of damage. One thing I want to do, but I haven't gotten around to it yet, is to put an Ulrich priest in there and turn all their weapons to multiple wounds too. That's actually allowed. At one point, just for the giggles, I'm going to play a regiment of 10 with the Ulrich priest in there. So when it comes down to all the shoot DB units that you have in the Empire, except for cannons, those guys are the ones that I would choose. And speaking of cannons, here are some. The Great Cannon, not as great as it was before, but I would say it's still great. So we should call it the Still Great Cannon. Those cannons are still doing Sigma's work. They're perfect to hunt for big targets. But the nerf to shooting at infantry is so severe that I actually wouldn't use them anymore to shoot into a regiment. Which brings me to the Hellfire Cannon. The Hellfire Cannon is the opposite of the Great Cannon. With those up to 30 shots, you can decimate infantry. But you always need an engineer to make it work. So here's the deal, actually. No wait, let's first talk about the other cannons. The mortar and the rocket battery. To be honest, I don't like either of them. The mortar has not enough strength to actually do something, and on the other hand, it's just too unreliable. You only get a D3 of rockets, so not all 3, and you always scatter. And even then, well, it's only strength 3. So I used the rocket battery in a match where I had 3000 points against 2 friends, and their board wasn't the size of 72 to 48 inches. So it was very, very crowded. And still, even in this match, it did absolutely nothing. So if I'm honest, at this point, after my, I think 12 matches or something with the Empire, I can deal with everything with my knights or my infantry. The thing that I fear is everything that's a big monster. And the answer to that is the Still Great Cannon, or 3 of them. All the other options that I have with artillery, it doesn't fit my army or my playstyle. Next up is my little steam tank, and I'm quite proud of it. I think that split theme fits really well on this model. The one side being black, the other side being this, well, yellow-orangish. This was actually an accident. The yellow side, I didn't paint this on purpose actually. This was way before when I learned about color modulation with filters and something else. What I wanted to try on this yellow part is giving it some rust. And it gotten out of hand quickly. So I tried to fix it by smearing the color up and down, and this turned this into, well, this perfect fade from yellow to orange, while still giving it a sort of dirty look, which is what I wanted. It's an old steam tank, which, well, brings me to the nameplate. The colors reminded me of a sunset, but I needed 2 words, because the nameplate is on the one side and on the other side. And I didn't want to call it sun and set. That's stupid. So I came up with a much more stupid idea. I thought to myself, what else does look like a sunset? Well, dawn, obviously, except that it doesn't. At least not the way the colors are depicted here. And then I still had the issue that I needed 2 words. So I called it Rising Dawn. Which are 2 words you can stick together, but I think it's not that. It's not a common phrase. Let's put it that way. But I'm not sorry, I like my little tank. It's quite an eye-catcher. And that's all that it is. It's a glorified cannon. The melee capabilities have been reduced severely in my opinion. But it's a very, very reliable cannon that you don't need an engineer for, and it can hold the flank at the same time. So it's a good package deal if it makes sense in your army composition. And I just love how it looks. Wizards. I have 4 of them. And as you can see, I mostly hate the normal hats that the kit comes with. So I gave those guys some hoods, mostly from the Wood Elf Archer pack. Also those colors are a little bit a legacy color again. I like to use the metal lore, the fire lore and the heavens lore back in the day. But they are gone nowadays. So the paint job doesn't make sense anymore. Doesn't matter, they still look cool and I like to use them. So far I actually think that the Empire has one of the most powerful casters out there. With all these high elf and dark elf shenanigans gone, where you could create more dice that you can roll and stuff like that, the Empire is very versatile. You have almost every single lore available and every level 4 wizard is almost equally strong than one of the other races. So these guys are cheap and they are really strong. And you have some nice items to buff them even more. The only thing that I'm missing right now is one on a Pegasus and one on a horse. I think this would make them even more versatile for me. Sticking one of these guys into my Inner Circle Knights, giving him black magic and then casting Bloodlust, that's gonna be fun. Here I have a Chapter Master and a Captain. I think that's the only Finecast model that I own. I think it's Finecast, if I'm not mistaken. This was one of the first Finecast models that they released, I think. And I really like the sculpt. I hate Finecast, everyone does, we don't have to talk about that. But I really like the sculpt. Which is sort of sad because I don't use captains. I don't find them useful. I don't even bring an army standard bearer anymore for the Empire. So I'm using this guy as a cool looking champion in one of my upcoming additions to my state troops. And my Chapter Master, well, the Empire doesn't need fighty heroes. They're not fighty enough, let's be honest. So I sometimes use him on a Pegasus as a one-hit wonder, maybe, but I don't use him on a horse, especially not in my knights anymore. I also don't like the fact that I gave him a power sword, but that's once again a sin of my past and I might change this in the future. And last but not least, my priests. I love them. I love the models, I love the lore, and they're actually quite good in the game. Those guys are the reasons why I don't use a captain or anything else. I always just, it feels like a letdown. These guys can buff my units. Why should I take a captain with 2 attacks when I can buff a whole regiment? Also, that guy on horse is actually a conversion. I used a Bretonnian horse for that with a Empire horse's head. I also used the legs and the lower body of a Bretonnian knight. Then I used the upper body from a greatsword guy. Also the head, I think. And I gave him the arms of an Empire knight and a book from the, I think it's from the Sorcerer kit. Yeah, I'm quite fond of this guy. Even though I'm playing him as an Ulrich priest right now. Maybe I need to swap the head out and give him a big bushy beard. But yeah, I really like the synergy of both priests. They work really well for me and I want more of them. Alrighty, this was my Empire army, at least so far. I am planning of reinforcing them quite severely and extensive in the future. So if you like Empire content, give me a like and maybe even a subscribe. And I see you in the next video.